All right, here we go. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Reyes Reflection podcast. Do not forget to share the show, rate us, comment, so that way we can continue to grow. And of course, follow me on all the social medias at I'm Nathanael Reyes. Continuing to chug right along with my fascinating guest. Along this journey, I've been able to meet some pretty interesting individuals, have some laughs, and this episode will be no different. My next guest has been carving his way in the music world for the last decade, I believe, and music is just in his blood. He's multi-talented, and he had a successful run on The Voice. So with that being said, please welcome DEVIX to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Hello. How's it going? Yeah, this has been a wild ride, man. Coming from having tried out for this show a couple of years ago, not even getting a chair turn, to coming out a couple of years later and running all the way to top 13. Yeah, like you said, it's been about a decade of performing live for the most part. Creating at home, and now we have this big door open to kind of take off from here, get some recording done.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I before we get into anything, I want to ask you: is DEVIX the name on your license?
It is not.
Okay.
I wish it was. Yeah, no, it came from long hobby of video game design. It was just a character that I would kind of come up with, and then I used it as a surname for an open mic, and I just kind of kept with it.
I like it, and it fits you now. Like it's like
Yeah.
right. It's like this is who I am now at this point.
Which is funny because I had an idea of a music project or something being called DEVIX, and then people saw it as the name, and then so they start calling me, and I was like, oh, I guess that's me now.
Yeah, right. Hey, it's just gonna be who I am. It's just gonna be who I am. You did mention top 13, and we'll get into your entire experience on the show. But as of now, what are you doing music-wise ever since your departure on the show?
The first thing I did was immediately put money into recording, mostly software. So I bought a Ableton Live Suite. I bought a MacBook, and I have some equipment that I've already had over the years. And a friend of mine gave me a keyboard as well. That it's like a pretty extensively MIDI controlled keyboard. So essentially, putting the grounds and the bass down for being able to record at home, kind of give myself no excuses to not be putting content out. And also, this is a lot of stuff that can be used live as well. So I'm looking to up the live performances on top of that.
Excellent. Yeah, give yourself the resources to be able to push out content, put yourself more out there. You had great exposure this past season of The Voice. So, again, we'll get into all that. I'm super excited to hear your perspective on it. So I want to start with learning who you are as a person. So, DEVIX, you grew up in Queens, New York. Is that correct? And I think I read something where single mother household with 5 siblings. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So I have 2 older brothers, an older sister, and a younger sister. My mom has cerebral palsy, and she raised us all pretty much by herself. And yeah, we were in New York when I was born. We were already stationed there, and I guess I was 8 when we moved off to North Carolina for a few years. Then we moved up to Pennsylvania, and have been there essentially ever since.
Okay, so the reason how you found yourself into York, Pennsylvania is because was there a family member in the military or something? Because I heard you say stationed, or did you just move?
Oh, yeah, just a random use of the word there. But no, I think it was more of we were having issues with my little sister's father. He's not a great guy and was causing issues, so we kind of moved to get away from him. And then some time elapsed. We got to the point where my little sister didn't have to have communication with her. So you reach a certain age, you don't have to do that kind of thing anymore. And we just kind of tracked a little bit closer back home, but just went a little more suburban as opposed to where we were growing up.
Yeah. You mentioned that your mother has the incurable disorder of cerebral palsy. How old were you? When did you find that out? And how did you manage that news?
So it was already, in play before I was born. It was already a thing. And I don't know. I don't think there was a moment where it was dawned on me, really. It was, 'cause for us, it was just this normal thing, a lot of people, I know they jump to to thinking like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I mean, which it does suck. It's a super unfortunate thing, but a lot of people like kind of jump to the sentiment of it when in reality for us growing up, that was the normal thing. Like almost like it was weird that everyone else's mom wasn't in a wheelchair or something like that. So it's kind of interesting perspective there. And I mean, it was a lot of toughness, growing up, just not being able to get around as easily. Obviously it stopped her from being able to work in a lot of different ways. So there's a lot of things that we had to do to kind of build each other up, make ends meet. My brother went and got a job as soon as he could at a certain age. And, he brought the first packet or batch of groceries, like right off the first paycheck. Like we had to make sure we were really allocating our resources in the best way just to make it,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it sounds like it was a collective effort by all the siblings to, as I stated, to your mother, who it's an unfortunate, like you said, incurable disease. However, she seems like she has a good, loving support system with her children, and sounds like you grew up with that too. Just having that, seeing those role models, and being it seems like that taught you to be a very selfless individual of just being able to, like you said, allocate those resources in a more appropriate way to help your family out, help your siblings out. And you're the middle child, is that correct?
Close. I'm second youngest out
Okay.
of five.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're on like the book, close to the bookends there. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was
Gotcha.
a weird spot to be in because I felt like, you have your stereotypical, oldest, youngest, and middle child
Yep.
syndromes, I guess. But I feel like the fourth and second slots are just not, it's just a random, I don't know,
Yeah,
random thing.
yeah, it's just kind of like, oh, all right, you're just there. Yeah. I
Yeah.
I hear. And I want to touch base on the interesting fact of you mentioning about your mother. So, my mother has Crohn's disease, and
Okay.
similar to what you said, I grew up with it, and it became a matter of, it was almost, there was a sense of normalcy, as you were saying, of
Mm.
I just didn't even think anything of it. And that infects your intestines and things like that. So I'm actually not familiar with what cerebral palsy. I think it like stiffens your muscles. Is that correct? Or
It does something. I haven't like extensively looked into it, but I know that it kind of disallows you, and sometimes gets worse, progressively as you move on. Kind of disallows you from using certain muscles, like through, I guess, the way that your brain's wired and stuff.
gotcha.
So for her, a little more particularly, she doesn't have like motor control for her legs. So in a way, yeah, she does get like very stiffened up, a lot of blocked off blood flow, so she has to find ways, and she is actually kind of frustrating growing up. I think the only way it really affected us in like a super negative way was just how much she would keep the heat on, like even in the summer.
Yeah.
So I'm over here like burning up, and I'm like, I get it, but I'm like roasting over here. But yeah, she does struggle with that quite a bit. And we have to like look into things like, the little bicycle things that like when you put your legs on it, automatically moves for you.
Gotcha. Yep.
Just to, get her extra circulation, heated socks and blankets and stuff like that.
Yep. No, excellent. And thank you for sharing about that. Thank you for letting us know, giving us more an in-depth perspective, especially you growing up in that. So,
Sure.
when you were growing up, that's when you started playing music, right? Instruments and things like that. So, when did you pick up a guitar? Or I know you played multiple instruments. I think you said that in your interview. So I want to hear from you. When did you truly fall in love with music?
Like you said, it was kind of all throughout growing up, but I think it really hit me. I mean, I know as a hobby, it really hit me and I was like very in love with it as soon as I started playing. It kind of just came naturally. I was around age 8 with the guitar.
Yep.
But then I would say between like 10th and 12th grade, it was when I was really thinking about moving forward with it as like an actual career. 10th grade came around and we had this, what do you call it? A talent show. And one of us had to sing, and one of us had to bite the bullet on it, and I got good feedback, and I kind of enjoyed it too. So, excuse me, just practicing with that, and then I got to a certain point. I was like, I really enjoy like creating. Like, this is really cool. Picking up more gear and having extra things at home to sit and write with and create with, and that just became what I wanted to do. So right out of high school, I had a full-time job at a warehouse, and like my first paycheck, I threw it straight into equipment. Got like a drum set, or an electric drum set, a loop station, and a lot of the people I knew, they were all moving away for college and stuff, or just you get tied up with your time after a while, and
Yep.
I just had this idea of doing it all myself if possible. So got the loop station. I started literally playing drums, keys, bass, everything like on stage live, just to give that sound that I was looking for of a full instrumental feel.
That's so impressive. I try to teach myself the acoustic guitar, and I struggle with it. I love it. Even I try to teach myself the keyboard. I love that stuff. I just I feel like you have to have a real knack and a real passion for it, and it seems like it's one of those things that you truly have to wake up and just, it's in your blood, you breathe it. And for me, it's more of just like, I love listening and I love kind of messing around with it, but actually doing it, it's very hard. And I believe one of your performances, you got to show your skills on the guitar as well, which we'll definitely get into more of that moving down. I also want to circle back. You said the name DEVIX started from video games. Is that correct?
Correct.
So are you a gamer?
Oh, avidly, yes.
Yeah.
I game pretty much every day. I sometimes spend too much time in it, but growing up, that was like a big thing for all of us for the most part. We had you had Sega Genesis, Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation, GameCube, like just down the line, we've pretty much had everything at some point.
Yep. Same. Yep.
And then, you got to have your, like, this hobby of music became a profession, and it's still, to an extent a hobby as well, but you have to have your breakaway moments and get like something that's just going to pass your time and something that's fun for you. That's not super, analyzed all the time or something.
Absolutely. Something where you can just mentally check out for a little bit. And I'm actually a retro game collector as well. So,
oh, really?
So that's why when you said that, I was like, I have the old school GameCube and PlayStation, different. I'm even where it's like, hey, this was the very first model. This one was a different model, and so I love video games as well. And so you said you play. Are you PC, PlayStation, Xbox?
PlayStation, yeah.
Nice.
I was Xbox for a long time, and then it's funny. I switched for specific reasons, and then they started making everything weird anyway. Like I switched to PS3 after a while. Because of the free service online, and PSN was free, and then all of a sudden, they released the next one. Like, you got to pay for it anyway. And it's like, okay. I did enjoy like the Xbox's bigger controller. Like it just felt a little bit easier to use. The PS3, very cramped, and then eventually they kind of fixed that too. So all around, mostly PlayStation for me, and I'm enjoying it for the most part.
Do you have a PlayStation 5?
I do. I just recently picked one up. Yeah.
Nice.
Loving that. Load time is amazing. I'm so happy to not be sitting there waiting for the game to start up like 5 minutes on or something.
Right. After this, I'll have to get your game tag and maybe we can play a game. Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. So, you actually alluded to it. We'll transition into your experience on The Voice. You alluded to that you actually auditioned and you got denied. So, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a weird experience. Like I didn't expect to. I don't exactly know like what went wrong for me entirely, but I do know that the biggest thing I remembered was that as I was auditioning, like on stage for the blinds, I guess I messed up like right from the get-go. Like I was so focused on the guitar. I remember that. So I didn't want to mess that up because I'm like, that's, for me at my core, that's the thing I'd done the most and most proficient with. But I kind of forgot about the singing for 2 seconds. So I think like I just strummed the note and I like got it, but I was like, oh wait, I'm supposed to sing. So it just did not sound great from the get-go. And it wasn't a strong start. And then as I was going through the entire audition, I just was snowballing because I was like, that didn't sound like what I wanted it to. Let's ramp it up here, maybe do something cooler, or try to sound better on the next thing. It just got totally out of control after I tried to one up every other thing that I did because it sucked the last time or something. And by the end of it, I didn't get terrible feedback or anything. They still talked to you for a second afterward. They were just they pointed out the where it was flawed, and they enjoyed the tone. They thought, the tone wise, it was cool to hear the quality there. but I mean, I was in agreement with all the things that they were saying. Like I took it very like from a constructive criticism point of view, and a lot of people get very discouraged. But I felt like the first thing I did was like, let's just not do that next time. And I kept trying out, and I think I also did like the preliminary auditions for I think 21, and they didn't take me on that season. And then 22 came around, and I stepped it up and remembered. I was like, this time I'm not using the guitar. Let me get my foot in the door first. Let's figure this thing out one step at a time and figure out like if that was the problem, and it's kind of went from there.
Nice. So it was season 21 in which you auditioned. 19. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, 19. So pretty recently, fairly recent, like the last 2-3 years, right? Yeah. Wow. So you actually went and did the blind audition and everything. So is that televised already?
No, so that audition didn't air, thank God. It was really bad. But yeah, it's kind of funny too, because there's this like rule of thumb. It's like if it hasn't happened on TV, it kind of hasn't happened. So we don't really talk about it moving forward. And actually 3 of the coaches were the same coaches. The only difference was Kelly. It was Kelly instead of Camila at the time. But like no one brought it up during this one either. So I was like, good, we don't talk about that.
Good. Yeah. And to your credit, they probably have had thousands of other ones since that, at a certain point, it probably just almost becomes like, okay, second nature. So you probably lucked out on that one. So you had a pretty impressive run, though, on this past season, I would say. Thanks. So starting from the beginning, your blind audition that was aired, that did happen. You sang a pretty popular song as well, being Heat Waves. And I know there's different variations to that song. Tell me why you chose that song.
I went with Heat Waves. We go in with like kind of a list of like a few different ideas that we have, but I was really glad to get that one because Glass Animals for me is like one of my favorite bands. And I love a lot of the work that they do. And it's kind of funny that that's like one of their only like super popular songs. Cause I'm like, I go through their discography and I'm like, this is all so great. Like, why is that the one song the radio hit? It makes sense. So like, it's the most like poppy sounding they've gotten.
Yep.
But like for me, that was a way to get my foot in the door with something, I talked about it on the show, like the pop sensibility behind Indian alternative sounds. Because those are my 2 like main genres. But over the years, I've also been incorporating that kind of pop sensibility into my work, trying to make trying to bridge the gap between those genres to hopefully keep that unique and obscure sounding or sound or feel, and then kind of also still like get other people more interested in that type of music as well, like with the things that they love from other genres, and kind of like I get very analytical about it. So I'm just like kind of breaking things apart and then bridging them in certain ways. And it's kind of like get a little bit of what you love here and a little stuff that you don't really get. And best of both worlds kind of thing.
And I think you just said it. You're right. I think music has evolved in a way where people are bridging that gap much more than what they once did. Even now, there's almost like a subgenre of country pop. And things like that, where at first it was just country. It was just country and just pop. And now, to her credit, Taylor Swift kind of, I think, knocked on that door. And then it's now evolved into a lot of country songs, which it still has that country feel. And now you've bridged that gap. So, and I like what you're saying, because you're right. I'm personally speaking, I'll speak for myself. I'm not really much of an indie listener type of, like all individuals, there's songs that I like from certain indie artists and things like that. But in your case, you're a big fan. You just said and there's songs where in their discography where you're like, hey, that should be that's better than this one.
Right.
And I'm not there yet. But you being able to bridge that gap seems like it's doing really well. And again, you did an excellent job. You did a lot of doing spins on songs where you made it indie pop, and I thought you did an excellent job, even just with that blind audition. Yeah, no problem. So pretty successful blind audition, 3-chair turn, and then you brought some friends with you to support you, and one of them was saying, "Pick John" on camera, but you ended up choosing Camila. What compelled you to want to choose Camila as your coach?
When I went into the auditions, obviously, like, given that they would potentially turn, you kind of have to like think about who you're going to end up going with. And the first person I did think of was Camila, just because of, I kind of had to go through some of her discography because I hadn't listened to a lot of her stuff prior.
Yep.
And as I did that, I was like, wow, like this is really cool. She's, again, that whole pop sensibility thing. Like I was noticing her doing, like there was this cool drawing energy into every song that she was doing, regardless of what the styling was. And I was like, there's something so cool about that. And so for one, that was like the biggest thing for me. And then like John was up there on my list as well. It was like going to be between the two of them essentially. And then as we were talking, there was kind of just a difference in conversation, I think. With John, he's complimenting me a lot, which was great. And you could tell it was like a genuine enjoyment of, just listening to what he heard and stuff. I think the difference was Camila talked more about like how we would kind of progress through the show, like the things that we would kind of like, she had just touching on that whole pop sensibility thing. As well as I can't really remember all of what was said, but obviously the camera, the show doesn't always put the entirety of what was said.
Right, yeah.
But just in my head, she had more conversation with me. She just talked about like essentially how we would be working together moving forward, and I think that like stuck out more because it was like you both complimented me, but one of you is talking about like the next game plan, and that's what's more interesting to me, which is also interesting because I remember when I saw, I think Nick Jonas, when he got up there, one of the only blind auditions that I had watched that season, I noticed he like immediately, it was like, here's some like a version of or an example of how we would work together. He starts talking about the song that he just did. It's like, it'd be kind of cool, to fish around with this type of thing. Maybe at this part where you do, play that part again on the guitar, that, you sing this, and maybe if you like kind of went up here, it's like working with him already on stage, showing that like genuine connection and trying to, obviously he wants to get him on his team, so he's convincing him too. But for me, that speaks a lot more, I think. Yep. So, I mean, they're all great, but that was just one thing that was just that extra bit that pulled me in that direction.
Yeah, and it was something in which you were like, hey, this is not only just the now, but also the future. And that's what that's especially on a competition reality TV show, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for now and the future as well, and how to navigate through that way. I thought you did an excellent job as well. You could definitely sense that all the coaches really liked you a lot. They really enjoyed your performance up there, and I thought that obviously you did do well because you made it far along in the competition. So kudos to you as well. So during the battles, you sang Electric Feel by MGMT, another great song. You ended up winning that one as well. And then afterwards you advanced to the knockouts, that's correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and then in the knockouts, it was the first time, I believe, in the show's history where they had 3 people going at each other, right?
Which is strange because I thought for sure that there was I thought actually with 19 that they had some kind of version of that where it's like a 3 or 4 way thing, but I might be mistaken. But yeah, this was the first time, at least that like across the board, every single person was in a 3-way knockout, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. So about that, you had kind of touched on something where you said it's kind of intimidating because you alluded to that you were seeing other contestants hitting notes that you were like, I'm not there yet, or that's a different note for me to hit. So, and you end up singing Yellow by Coldplay. Walk me through the knockout process, not the audition, the rehearsal part of it. You're watching them rehearse, and there is this little intimidation factor. It's almost like if you're on a sports team and you're watching the other team practice, essentially.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you're like, oh man, like they're taller than me, they're stronger than me, like, whatever the case may be, how can I beat this person? Because again, you're still in a competition. Walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, we had rehearsal days, and we had moments where we got to practice by ourselves and in front of somebody, and make sure that like we're still making it sound good regardless of what else is going on. But yeah, there was that big intimidation factor of, like you said, like literally watching them do their entire song and then get tips on how to get better. And it's like, well, damn it, like you're already doing great, and now they're figuring out, with Camila how to do even better. And then so it was Andrew Igbokidi, I'm pronouncing that right, and Stephen McMoran, both great vocalists. I mean, obviously they made it to a certain point for a reason. And I noticed one thing that kind of relaxed me was I noticed that we all had different ranges. Stephen was in the higher range. I had kind of this middle area, and then Andrew was a lot lower. We all sounded like pretty solid in those sections. So that kind of eased my mind a bit to kind of be like, okay, well, we are in general different because of like style, but also, this really pulls us apart a bit because now we're not going to be as compared. They're not going to listen to Andrew and be like, how come he's not doing the high notes like Stephen? So their voices are completely different, is why, so it's just helpful there. And then another thing I had to kind of keep in mind was the same mentality I went into it, and I think everyone should go into it with, is the only person you should be beating is yourself. I feel like you should be, doing what you can to make yourself better than yourself, not better than somebody else, because it's a competition against each other technically. But at the end of the day, that's, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but like, just, you got to pull away from that idea that it's like a legitimate like battle toward each other. You have to just do the best that you can do, because that's what you're getting kind of graded on at this point. Same concept for battles. Me and Sasha both went in with the mentality of like, we're going to make sure that we both just put on a damn good performance, because that's all we can do. I don't want to outdo you. I don't want you to outdo me. And if you do, that's fine, but we both excel. We all excel. And even on the knockouts in very different areas. And it's by honing those things that make us great singers by ourselves. That's, that uniqueness is what they're looking for. So during rehearsals, I kind of had to remind myself of that. And, it was a shocking factor at first, but then like, as we're there, I'm like, this is just so cool. Like it was the first time we got to like watch each other do, sing or anything like that. Every other time it's like, you go do your thing and then you kind of get out offset. So it was also just like exciting in that way, that like during rehearsal and during the actual show, we got to actually like share those moments with each other as well. I don't know if there's much more to the process there.
Yep.
And like, obviously we weren't like working together like we would have been like with battles or anything. So I think, it was like a very, that itself was kind of scary too, because battles is like, let's do it together. We're going to do this. It's going to be awesome. And then knockouts, it's like, oh man, I can't like go bring my ideas to them and like see, bounce things off each other really. So you're kind of like more on your own at that point.
Because in the battles, you're more essentially duetting. It's a duet, right? So you're both singing the song, and there is this give and take, almost like I got you. So you were able to pretty much settle in during the knockouts, and then once you settled in, you kind of felt, and after you settled in and you took your own insight of, hey, it's on me, not on them. And yes, it is a competition show, but it's the best that DEVIX can do, not what your other wow, that's a really, thank you for providing that insight, because I really like listening to these type of things and things like that. And even when you mentioned the battles, I forget that, because it is a duet, there is give and take. You are kind of rehearsing, feeding off of each other's energy a little bit more, whereas in these knockout rounds, it really is just kind of your solo. You're riding solo, and then you're singing your own song to the best that you can do it. Now, did you pick your song? You got to pick it?
For the knockouts, I did, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
That was like, obviously they have like a extent of what they can allow just because of licensing, I'm sure. Excuse me. But yeah, I had to go with Coldplay on that one, like just out of what I saw available. And I mean, it was a song that like, there was a trend of every song that I got or put in. There were all songs I've known since they got released. Yeah. So like, Coldplay is an easy go-to for me. I really do enjoy, singing Coldplay in general. And I also felt like there's some, for me in my head, there's some of the people I match best to vocally. And I've covered a lot of their stuff as well. So it's like, it kind of just made the most sense to go that route.
Yep. No, for sure. Because you ended up winning the knockouts, you advanced to, I believe they call it the live playoffs. In the first round, America voted to save you. That was pretty cool.
That was awesome, yeah.
But unfortunately, your time on the show did come to an end in the second round. How high was your heart rate when Carson Daly is there waiting to give you the results?
It was just a weird feeling overall. I think, I was like really excited, But I think it was, again, one of those things where prepping myself mentally beforehand really calmed me down, like moving forward. Like when I went into it, I remember thinking like, this is kind of like the bonus rounds. You know, we made it as far as we did. I mean, honestly, anything past the blind audition kind of felt like that for the most part too. But I think the biggest reason for that is because, I mean, when you're going in there and you're just doing the best that you can, that's all you can really ask for with the situation. And whether or not you move forward doesn't necessarily mean, you know, you're good or bad, or that was like a bad situation, or that you couldn't do better like later, you know?
Right.
So like, I was a little surprised, honestly, to go like straight to top 13 without, you know, like as one of the saves. You know, I believe in myself and I'm proud of myself, but there's a lot of really good talent on the show, you know? So, I was mostly probably surprised to have gone as far as I did, but very excited and kind of, you know, that was a nice fuel for me to kind of keep pushing on it. Be at top 13, getting on that stage, and then them saying like that I was going to be in the bottom 4. I was like, oh crap! So a little bit of like, not necessarily a letdown, but I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have our Last Chance song right after, and you know, it was another thing. I was like, I just got to go in. I'm going to give it my best shot. And I went in that week as well, very particularly with one mission, which was to finally break open on stage and just like live a little while I'm doing it. Because I always have this issue, which I kind of started to really understand about myself as I went about it. It was like, I've just always been living in survival mode, which probably comes from, you know, like a really rough, you know, childhood. But the way we grew up was, you know, very impoverished. So just having to like always fend for ourselves and make ends meet in whatever way, I didn't realize how much that was translating to my performances. And I started to realize, you know, the survival mode thing kind of kept me in like this mode as if I was like in interview mode rather than just having fun with what I'm doing. And when I say interview, I mean more like trying to get a job or something. So I'm like overly professional about it, and
like saying the right things, doing the right things, that type of deal, rather than just letting loose.
Right. Don't move around too much, because then you're going to look a little funky or goofy. Gotcha. And you need to be like prim and proper, you know, that kind of thing. So you could even see it with my top 16 performance. And John even made a comment on it, which I appreciated, because like it's a reminder, because it's something that I don't like that I do, you know, that I think that I get that stiff. And when he pointed it out, it was a nice reminder to know that that is what's being seen. And if you don't like it, you got to change it, you know? So I had to kind of like do some digging and figure out mentally, psychologically, like what is holding me back so much. And I got on those last 2 songs for the top 13, and I was like, I'm just having fun now. So like whether I go home or not doesn't matter. You know, I finally did what I kind of came here to do. And going out with a bang was like the biggest accomplishment I could have had, you know. Like worst case scenario, I go on another week and then screw up my next performance or something. But like I'm just happy with, you know, how far that got and just the way that I did it.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a very good point of just sometimes just because you don't advance doesn't mean you're not good. There's still plenty of talent that didn't even make the show or didn't make it as far either. And it's just all about finding your little path and how you're going to create this path of yours to success in your own way. And I think it's important, especially for individuals like yourself and even myself to a degree, obviously not at the scale that you were at on national TV, but even myself, I think it's very easy to want to be attached to the outcome of like, hey, I want to be this, I want to be this. And, you know, a lot of people do podcasts and self-narrative podcasts like myself. And to me, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, but do you love it? Is it something that you want to do? Do you have fun with it? And in your case, it sounds like that's something that you did. And I'm glad that you were able to kind of let loose, even if it was for the last couple of performances. So that way you can have that confidence and that experience in your own mind to be able to push through moving forward. So your time on the show was not in vain. You did get plenty of exposure and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity singing Happy Together on stage with an icon in the industry of Camila Cabello. What was that experience like? I mean, that seems so cool.
It was really cool. That was another, I kind of almost forgot that we did that actually, because I'm thinking about the 2, you know, specific songs that were for me. That was yeah, that was another version of breaking open and being a little more freeing. And she's one of the best people to work with in that respect, because like the biggest thing that she puts on as a character in life in general is to, be herself, to be, openly vulnerable with allowing just herself to exist. Like you take her or leave it, like that her personality is not going to change due to, people watching type thing. And so that was something that I didn't realize I needed that much to be surrounded by. And then getting on stage with her doing that, it was like, we actually are like all really happy together when you like stop worrying about crap and, allow yourself to literally live in that moment and let the performance be the performance, get a little loosey goosey, look a little goofy. Worst case scenario, it's like a viral meme or something, but like you're good. I mean, that's just more attention on you anyway. So,
right. You go viral.
Yeah, it's really cool. Worst case scenario, you go viral.
I guess in today's world, that's not the worst thing in the world. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Especially when like this job calls for attention, so like that, my worst case is a big help.
Absolutely. Is there a story or something that you can share about Camila in which that it was just one of those things where you're like, wow, this is just one of those things I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life, whether it's some of her coaching or even just an experience that you two had? Because I'm sure you worked one-on-one with her in some moments. You also worked with Charlie Puth as well, because that was her advisor or something to that effect. So Is there anything from that experience that you're like, wow, this is just obviously I'm sure the abundance of everything, it's an experience you'll take on, but is there one particular moment in time where you're like, this was it, this is the moment that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life?
I kind of had two moments. The first one I'll make a little bit quicker, but like you mentioned, Charlie Puth, during that rehearsal with Sasha, Charlie, and Camila all there, they were kind of blown away by what we did. We didn't get like any vocal notes. So like, I mean, the unfortunate thing was that Charlie was through him enjoying the performance and just us practicing with it, it kind of led him to not have any notes at all, like because he was just enjoying it that much. But it also meant that was like one less thing that we would get as a way to kind of progress ourselves.
Yep.
But that's also very telling that, to know that we didn't really have much more work to do to sound great. But like them two just kind of raving about it as it was happening. Like for me and Sasha, we were like kind of nervous about going into that song particularly. And then when we finally kind of worked through it, we had this version of it to give her and show her, and she was like, "Oh, like this is really good already. Like, what are we, supposed to work on here?" But the other part I was going to say was during I think it would have been, I can't remember if it was top 13 or 16's rehearsal. I think it was 13 actually. Yeah, where we had the one on camera with her, and it was actually partly a moment that I didn't remember really until someone had brought it up. Talking about the episode where she came in and was saying during the song, like, it's kind of, we got to find that point where you can like make it do your DEVIX thing to it, like, and it was kind of awesome to hear that like she sees that as its own unique artistry. Because now for me, I'm like, oh, I have my own style. Like that's something that can be hard to come by, especially when you grow up like covering a lot of the songs that you love, and that you start to sound like those people because you listen to them so much or something like that. But that was a nice big reassurance that like I had the ability to create something and it just sounded like my work, not someone else's, not like it's similar or super similar to somebody else, not even congruent at all, like. So that for me, that was a big buff, a nice like little ego lift, I guess.
Absolutely. I think that's what separated you from a lot of people this past season. I think what separated you was DEVIX wasn't just a person. It kind of sounds like it can be its own brand, and it kind of sounds like it's its own, like you said, type of artistry of the way the performance is. And I think she even mentioned that, like, I know that there was a point in time in which they were almost giving you a moniker or a nickname or something to describe you. And for you, she called you true artist. Right. Yes. Yeah. Because of just how you're able to separate yourself, because DEVIX is his own individual, his own unique persona and person. And I think, man, I think you did great. I mean, kudos to you. So,
Yeah, thank you.
one of the things you did say on the show was you said one of your biggest struggles as a performer is stage presence. Do you have any strategies that you've helped yourself coach yourself, or even just, maybe Camila helped you, or another coach, or even someone? I know you're working with many talented artists as well, but is there anything that happened where you were able to kind of work through some of those struggles or overcome those struggles in your own way?
I think watching a lot of the other contestants, like especially during the lives, we were kind of backstage, like watching on TV, literally. So like our top 16 happened, and Omar opened the show, and I remember that being a particular moment where like if I had any nervousness in me, watching him just helped so much, because it was like, dude, he's taking control of the stage. He's making the stage, his total control there. And I thought that was just a really exciting thing to watch. So it was encouraging to be like, oh, we can move. Like, we're allowed to not stand and play. Like I always feel so grounded and rooted, mainly because of that whole thing I was talking about earlier with the interview mode, survival mode thing. But that was helpful. And I noticed before I went out for the lives, after the knockouts, I was back home playing a show. And I remember having this moment where I started to, I was playing, I started like talking about the fact that I was on the show, and I was like, if you guys are interested in watching me move forward, and this and that, follow me online, blah, 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 blah. And for the first half of the show, there was a lot of attention on me. And this was like, most of the shows we play back home end up being like this background of the winery or the vineyard or bar or whatever. So it can be hard to catch attention, but I had their attention quite a bit, like throughout the first half. And all of a sudden, like, it just wasn't the same for a little bit. And I didn't get upset, but I was like, okay, we're going to figure out here why they're not paying as much attention anymore. And, part of it was like, I'm probably sitting here looking just, stiff interviewer mode, where I'm just like, not super fun to watch, unfortunately. And it's not a terrible thing. It's just something, to work on. And I was also thinking like, well, why might that be? It's just a lot to process while I'm playing too. So I'm like sitting here, like analyzing myself as I'm playing. So I probably look even less fun. But I started to do this thing where I imagined a different show setup, as if I was somewhere on a bigger stage with lights, and not like there was a different crowd necessarily, but just like proper production value behind me, kind of like on the show. And there was this like vision of that kind of translucently like paved over everything that I was actually seeing in the world. So it's kind of like daydreaming almost a little bit. And all of a sudden I kind of like felt like myself moving around a little bit more. I was feeling a little bit more in the zone. I felt a little more loose, which was great. And then all of a sudden people started paying attention again. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm the performer. I'm supposed to get their attention, not only feed off the attention that I'm hoping I just like hoping for them to be paying attention and then just use that energy. And it's like, no, you're supposed to do your job so that they look like that. You bring that to them.
Like command the attention. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a moment in time where it's like, it was a nice like learning curve thing. It seems so obvious, you're playing music for 10 years and like, how did you not think of that type thing? But I think it's more of just the being present with that thought, as opposed to it's supposed to be coming naturally. Like everyone messes up things in their professions all the time. And you just kind of have to remember, like, if that's an issue, that you kind of have to sit with it for a second to kind of work through it a little bit more. Like what's the word? In total awareness of it, I guess, like consciously work through it is what I was looking for.
Yeah. I mean, even the top performers, they're being coached, they're being told how they can get better, and that just it's how you take that information. If you receive it in a way to better yourself, then you're just gonna be the best version that you can be. But if you take it as, oh, they don't like it, then, and obviously, like in any profession, you're going to get just negative criticism of just someone with they're just in a bad mood. But try to even find the little things that you can take with you to help yourself to be the best version of yourself that you can be. So no, I couldn't agree with you more. The blind auditions and the battles and the knockouts, they're all pre-recorded. Is that correct? Like
correct.
In the summer.
Yeah,
so
pre-taped.
You recently then, as much as what, 3 weeks ago, you were just there, right? Is that correct? Like, so did they fly you out?
Yeah, I think it was just a couple weeks ago. Yeah, they fly you out. They make sure they're taking care of you. They're there for extended periods of time, most of the time. So, yeah, they have to make that work for both sides, like on their end and your end. So yeah, for blinds, we were there for roughly a month, just because they're working with so many people at that point. And then battles and knockouts, I think, were collectively like 4 or 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lives is we had like 2 weeks of prep before we started the actual show, and that was like legitimately live. So you're just there till when you get off the show, pretty much.
Nice.
We're like flown out the home, like the literal next day to like get out of here.
Yeah.
So it's just I mean, it wasn't bad. Like, it's just how the show works, you know.
Yeah. Private. What are the amenities? Private jets or anything cool like that?
Oh, I wish. No, they're pretty standard about most of it. I mean, the hotels, it's a nice-ish hotel, but like nothing like super special. And I mean, it's nice that they give you per diem. They're making sure that you're fed and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you also have like paid stipends and stuff, because they're like, well, if we're going to keep you out here for a month, you might not be able to afford your bills back home if you're not making any money. So they just something to kind of help kind of balance that life at home a little bit.
Oh wow! See, that's really cool. I never knew that they had those accommodations. I was more just wishful thinking when I said, the private jets and 5-star hotels. But the fact that they're making those accommodations so that way you can, provide a very strong performance, the best of your capability.
Right.
I mean that it sounds like it was a great experience for you collectively.
For sure.
So I'm glad that you were able to share that on the show. Some questions about yourself while we wrap up here. So you're really into UK bands. Tell me some of your inspirations and who you. I know as an artist you probably take a little bit from other artists to try to help yourself.
Sure.
But is there one that you're like, hey, this is the person, this is my inspiration, this is who I kind of roll with? And but I also want to hear about some of your favorite UK bands as well.
Yeah, I think the first band that stuck out to me that way, I don't know if they have as much influence nowadays, especially since they haven't released anything in like 5 years. But Daughter was the biggest band that I was like pulling a lot of inspiration from, and I was writing very similarly to them as well, because they had this like very unique lane. I think it's called dream folk was their genre. So it's like folk sounding things, but like on that like not to like Monsters and Men type, like quicker pace, up tempo type stuff. It was more like the opposite. It was a very I don't really know where the folk part really comes from, but I just I don't know. But they had this really cool sound, very ethereal, and there was just so much like I said in the genre, just dreaminess to it. It was so cool to hear that on top of very like bare bones instrumentals and stuff. Like they use, even the drummer was using, I think at one point I went to a show and I think he was just using bass drum, one tom drum, maybe 1 or 2 cymbals. I think like 1 cymbal and a snare that he covered up with a towel, so it's super dampened anyway. It's like super bare bones, like minimalistic instrumentals, and I'm like, that's so cool that you can do all of those things and make everything sound so cool with almost nothing. So I was on top of being inspired by them creatively, I was also like amazed by what their potential was. But yeah, I would say Daughter was definitely the biggest thing growing into my own lane and growing into my own creative stuff. Kind of fell off after a little bit, I think. And it's also because I started to like pull in inspiration from other areas, but also finding my own sound, in that process. I think you start to take a little less inspiration elsewhere because you're wanting to create your own thing.
Yep. Trying to weave your own way into it. Yep. So, where's one place that DEVIX would like to travel to?
I would say kind of like a 2-in-1 thing here, because I would love to perform, but at the the Glastonbury, I think it's pronounced. It's in England.
Yep.
Like big festivals and stuff that they hold there with like an awesome stage, and the crowd always looks great. The imagery looks awesome. So I would say, I mean, I've been to England as well. Like my sister lives out there, so I visited. But just going to like a venue like that in England would be really cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, one of those like big cathedral type of feels. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. What do you do to de-stress after a rough day or after something bad happens to you? What does DEVIX do to de-stress?
I think gaming is a super easy distraction for sure. And then just jumping into like writing music if I'm not too stressed to do that. Cause sometimes you like, I don't even want to write right now because it's like, I don't want to write out of anger or something like that. But I think even just listening to music, especially like I got these headphones because of the quality, like I think it's the AirPod Max Pro, whatever they're called, specifically just to zone out and just allow myself to just take music in and that's it. And it's super helpful. It feels great and puts me on like another plane of existence. It feels just awesome to be able to totally distress that way.
I've been looking at those headphones. Are they so you recommend them?
I would recommend them if you're okay dropping the money for them because
Yeah.
I think there are ones that are similar enough that don't cost as much. But I have been enjoying the quality behind them. I'm sure them. I'm assuming the mic sounds okay. I never really hear back, what I'm saying through them, but comfort in the this thing kind of goes around the entire ear, which is nice. So you're not like pushing your ear up against you and like causing any pain there. I think the only problem is that I specifically move my ears a lot. So the mesh piece here kind of starts to scafe like my
Oh, yep.
the skin around, and it's just because I move my ears since it's shifting and jiggling that in the background is the only complaint that I would say I have with them.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was just curious because I've been looking at them. I know what you mean because I have one that I wear to the gym, but I'm like, and I like it. But I've always seen those, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get a pair of those because I hear nothing but good things about them. And I'm like, okay,
Right.
you know what? Maybe I'll wait till there's a price drop or something. We'll see.
I will say for gym purposes, because I've just noticed even like going up the stairs or like running up the stairs more so that there's a little because of the weight to them that they're not heavy, but like because of the weight and the way that they're made, I think that they kind of jiggle a little bit. So that
Oh,
space around you, you kind of feel that a bit.
okay.
Excuse me. And I don't know if like a lot of movement will cause issues. Like I personally wouldn't go running with them. The gym might be okay, honestly. Like if you're just doing basic workouts and stuff, but if you're gonna like do jump rope or something like that, it might start to
Oh,
get
okay.
annoying.
All right. Thank you for the review.
Well, yeah.
So what is one topic or question you wish I could have brought up?
um, I don't know. I guess like a little bit maybe imagined like steps moving forward, but I kind of also sounded like we might have eventually gotten to that question anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so just like on that note, I mean, like I kind of touched on like all the stuff that I purchased and stuff. So hopefully, really looking into setting up a record release as well as a tour for 2023 is the biggest things in mind for me right now, and really looking to up my live performances instrumentally, stage presence wise, like I said earlier, working on that still, but just as a lot of extra capabilities I have now because of the stuff that I purchased and got from my friends and stuff. Um, the I got Ableton Live, so like there's a big playground of stuff I can work with now, and there's a lot of big names that use that live as well. So there's gonna be a lot more control, and I think people are gonna like what I have in mind. I just got to put it into the actual software.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, so it's interesting you say that because my last question was always, where can people find you so they can start to see your
Sure.
content and all that stuff? So where can people find you so that way they can follow you, see your journey and all that stuff, all the content that you're about to push out in the upcoming year or two?
Sure. I everything is all social media at least is tagged under DEVIX Music, so DEVIX Music, and then I have the website up at devixofficial.com,
Do you have
which has links to all the social media as well.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
I do, yeah. There's not a lot posted up there, but I have playlisted all the clips of me from the show, and I think I have like 3 videos posted. All from like years prior, but I think like 2 of them are from a couple years back, which isn't too shabby on time. But I'm looking to make more content now that I have a lot more to work with.
Yeah, yeah, and the exposure to help you out. Yep. So,
Right.
yeah, most definitely. So, well, Devix, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day and doing this with me. It's been great. I really appreciate it. You have a fan for life in me. I can't wait to see the journey that you do. Check this man out. He's an excellent individual, excellent person, excellent artist. So thank you so much for doing the show, my friend.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And yeah, just appreciate the interest. A lot of people just cut straight to the questions usually, and like we have an actual conversation. And it feels good. So appreciate that.
I like that. I like that. I like to be a little disarming and genuine, and I like it to be a situation of like, hey, it makes me feel good when you say those things, because for me, it's one of those things where it's like you're an individual. You're on the show, but at the same time, you have a backstory, and that's when I wanted to start this podcast. I wanted to do it not just for what people do, but how they got there. And that's one of the things that I love. I love listening to the journey, asking questions. So, and the journey's not done. I'll still follow it, my friend. So thank you so much for saying that.
Thank you.
We're wrapped for this episode of the Reyes Reflection podcast. And as always, may you live, may you love, and may you thrive. I'm Oprah, and I love you all.